Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So what we're going to watch today is actually 007 First Light's early impressions and reviews that have no spoilers. It's not supposed to feature any spoilers, not too much in-depth gameplay or any specific moments in the game where it can create that kind of spoiler and ruin the experience. So we're going to go ahead and watch that today. I do have an Urban Rain video dropping this week. I got a huge GTA video that features all the GTAs in one video. It's going to be super fun to watch. As we also rank each GTA. I didn't want to like spoil it, but just letting you guys know now, because I think someone thought I was doing like another GTA 6 news video. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to force news that doesn't have to be put out. But anything that we do here that's kind of close to the dates, of course I'm going to talk about it. And I got some other gameplay, 3 hoops and a bunch of stuff dropping. But let's go ahead and watch this, because I've been watching Tyrone Magnus sidebar for a long time, and still to this day. And I genuinely enjoy when he reacts to a lot of the reviews that are coming out for whether if it's a movie, a game, or something, simply because it's like having a conversation with you guys where it may not spoil you the content that, you know, we're watching. It's a review, but it gives us insight, and then we can have that conversation if we're still excited nonetheless. So I kind of want to do that. So shout out to him, man. I've been watching him for years, man. But one thing that I'm looking forward to in this, we're missing an Uncharted game, and they're saying that this game is like the next thing to Uncharted 5 that we're ever gonna get. I'm also a huge fan of Splinter Cell Blacklist, which again, where the hell is a Splinter Cell game? We haven't gotten one. And so having that balance along coming from the devs who made Hitman, a whole new engine that they're working on, I'm super excited for this. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, hit that hype button. It's free. And on our way to 125,000 subs. Let's get it popping.
So yes, we've got to talk about 007 First Light. I am extremely excited about this game, but
me too.
We're going to be talking about early hands-on impressions from the latest build, both the positives, and we're definitely not going to be shying away from the negatives.
Ooh, there's negatives?
Plus,
not
we are
cool.
going to be talking about the gameplay. We're going to dive a little bit into the story, not too much. We're going to talk about James Bond as a character, and yes, we are.
And just to let you guys know, the gameplay that you see here is gameplay that GameSpot, like all these other all these other publications as well as other channels have access to. I even reacted to the gameplay way early on when they sent us footage. So just notice, ain't like footage that we haven't seen yet, there's never before seen, and like leaked content at all.
We're going to be talking about that performance on consoles and PC, even like the lower end PCs. Can they handle this game? We have a lot to look into from Digital Foundry there as well. But hearing that this game is kind of emerging between Hitman and Uncharted, dude, I'm
super hyped. I just mentioned Uncharted.
Dive in here and talk about it. So yeah,
I just mentioned Uncharted.
007 First Light, if you did not know, drops on May 27th, has an early access period of May 26th for those that pre-order. But I think the most important thing to start off with is the fact that this game is made by IO Interactive, the Danish studio behind the entire Hitman franchise. And if you're a Hitman fan, you already know why this is especially exciting here. These are the very people who spent over 2 decades building some of the most iconic, creative, system-driven stealth sandboxes in gaming history.
Oh man,
by Miami, these are levels that people are still finding new things to do in years after launch. So when IO announced back in November 2020 that they've acquired the James Bond license, well, I was totally shocked and absolutely excited, because I felt like they were the ones to obviously develop this type of game.
That's good. That's dope, man.
Where it gets kind of interesting, and what we're going to be diving into more immediately is that IO, they didn't just make a Hitman reskin with Bond's face stapled on. That's a very deliberate, creative choice to go in a very different direction. It's going to be more narrative focused, more cinematic, more Uncharted than Hitman in many ways. And there's definitely some,
and that's one thing that got me excited just now. So of course, you know, that like hunger for just like a stealth game, it's kind of missing. And yeah, I think there has been a game that just dropped that has some stealth in it, of course, but yeah, it's still a little bit missing in these games, man. We don't often have a lot of good stealth, and I'm talking about really good stealth like the old Splinter Cell games. And the fact that he just compared it to Uncharted, and they're saying that it's similar to that, means the gameplay is much more fast paced. If you've played Hitman games, the previous Hitman games, they've always been more of like a stiff, stealthy walk. They're not as flexible. It's not as crazy chaotic. And the gameplay is, how do I say? It's more of a personal experience with Agent 47 in the story narration. However, in this case here, you can see so much is going on, and to see these devs work on a game where you have to be more flexible, more fluid in game, I'm impressed by that. Seriously.
Opinions about this. Now, IO's CEO did put it this way, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here. They wanted to push the boundaries of what a James Bond game could be while telling a completely fresh original story. So this isn't tied to any film.
Oh,
Daniel Craig, no Pierce Brosnan. This is their Bond, built from scratch. So we've got a little bit of 007, Hitman, and Uncharted in this game, but how prominent is the 007 in this mixture? Does it really stand out, or is it lost in the mix? So let's talk about gameplay first. So yes, the core structure of 007 First Light is best described in IO's own.
that's so fire that you use mechanics like Watch
This
Dogs in
has
this.
a sandbox that leads into stealth action, which leads into a gunfight, which leads into a vehicle chase, and then it loops back around. It's kind of like a rhythm. Linear cinematic sections funnel you into smaller sandboxes, then back out again into more directed movie style sequences. And the early impressions really got to dive deep into the game's systems. I got to experience several levels as well, and really got to experience the variety on offer here, from the stealth,
That's super
to
fire.
the gunplay, to the hand-to-hand melee combat, all the way up into the boss fights and vehicular stuff as well. But we got to talk about the mechanical stuff here. So the license to kill system, how has this been received? So this is one of the design decisions that everyone was talking about. In standard gameplay, Bond cannot just draw a gun. If you try to aim at someone in a non-combat situation, Bond will actually refuse. He just won't do it. Only when enemies escalate to lethal intent does what the game calls the license to kill phase activate here. Suddenly, Bond's full marksmanship.
So are you restricted for just going rogue? So you're not able to go rogue in this game. They wanted to fully design this game to where it's way more authentic than you just going rogue. I wonder what would happen if hackers or modders removed that kind of system and they allowed you to go rogue. But also, I know how people could be like, "Oh wow, that's kind of whack." Like, but this is not like a mind's eye situation where you just can't shoot out of vehicles or get out of vehicles in free roaming. Like it's more so like we're trying to give you the experience of James Bond. So to combat that idea of like not having that feature of you just going rogue, we're gonna have some intuitive features in here that can make up for like why we wanted to bring this experience and for you to enjoy this experience and be okay with not having to go rogue or something like that, I guess.
I did that Bond is a spy first, not a shooter. You're supposed to reach for
Nice,
stealth,
nice,
action,
nice,
gadgets
nice. I like
before you
that then.
reach for a gun. However, it was noted some people felt this could be limiting to gameplay freedom, and it's going to be.
I just said that.
How you guys,
Literally just said that.
basically react to this, but it makes sense to Bond's core character. But yeah,
Yeah, my thing is if they gave you so much freedom to do as you please, it may not be a James Bond game for everybody. I'm being serious. If you remove, because here's the thing, it's a video game choice, and I think like it's a choice that was made by the team. It's like making a Batman game and then having the accessibility or the accessories of Batman or having everything to your core without allowing Batman to explore and do all these things. It's like, what's the point? You know, it's like Batman being a billionaire from his company, and all of a sudden, instead of just playing out the game, you just buy everything to just do it for you. I know it's a stupid example, but the whole point is they're making it in a certain way, but they're not removing a feature. You can blatantly see how trash it is. It's like, no, we need to make sure you guys understand this is a James Bond game. If we make a James Bond game, a 007 game, excuse me, and you guys go rogue and go crazy, people are gonna look at this like, no, it's a third person shooter to y'all. It's not really, it's not. So you gotta kind of like stick to the faith of the game and the core of the game of what it is.
The opinions come into play here, and it's definitely interesting. So yes, we're gonna start out here with YouTuber Jake Baldino. Also had some.
Oh, Jake, shout out to Jake.
So the single biggest surprise for Jake was how the game felt less like pure Hitman and more like a blend of Hitman, Batman, Arkham, and Watch Dogs. So the Hitman.
Wow.
Camera angle, the pacing of the movement, how you follow and pickpocket people, how rooms are arranged. But Bond doesn't need to worry about hiding bodies or maintaining disguises, which gives everything a slightly faster, more forward-moving feel. So the Watch Dogs comparison.
You don't have to hide bodies because you could technically use gadgets.
Tech Watch is to everything. You're constantly looking around the environment, targeting objects and interacting with them, hacking copy machines, glitching out computers, cutting security cameras, dropping chandeliers, bursting pipes. It's all an on-the-fly environmental manipulation system that runs through both the stealth and combat portions of the game. Now, the Batman Arkham comparisons, where are those? So this really crystallized for Jake during a boss fight against a classic Bond henchman type villain. The structure of the fight was essentially the Mr. Freeze battle from Arkham City. You can't use the same trick twice because the enemy adapts, so you have to cycle through every tool Bond has. And I gotta say, it's great to note here that IO
That's actually kind of cool.
like some of the best franchises in the world for inspiration, their own
That's actually really cool. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't expect that.
Uncharted. So that right there tells you a lot of their kind of like mental mindset when developing this game. Also, by the way, I should mention that this game takes roughly around 20 hours to complete.
Damn, that's a lot.
That's perfect. And then others are like, that's way too short. I think that's perfect.
What? That's perfect.
How long I think Uncharted 4 takes around to complete. So yeah, I'm there for it. I want kind of like a movie experience with this game to know that this is one game that I can actually finish and see those credits roll. And we also have
that's perfect to me. I don't know.
That got to sit in on this game and go hands-on with it. So check this out right here. So yes, Kotaku, IGN, and GameSpot all praised the gunplay when it did activate, calling it responsive and satisfying. Now, IO said up front they want to deliver better gunplay than Hitman because Agent 47 uses guns as tools, but Bond is an expert marksman. There's a different relationship.
Expert marksman, man. He missing shots in that gameplay.
Also, Mr. Matty Plays had some things to say here. The clear standout for me.
Oh, I like Matty Plays too. His content's fire.
Combat. He described it as chaotic, reactive sandbox in its own right. You can grab enemies, throw them into each other, toss items off counters, smash people into boxes, and chain it all together fluidly with shooting. He compared the spirit of it to the old Indiana Jones Emperor's Tomb game, but said First Light is significantly more reactive and inventive. He admitted it was so fun that he actively didn't want to play stealthy, he just wanted to fight. The combat here handles multiple enemy types, including, yes, the more martially skilled opponents who mix things up, and it changed smoothly between melee and gunplay. Now, the gunplay itself also impressed him. Shooting enemies in the arm causes them to drop their weapon, which you can then kick.
I'm so excited to play this out. I am.
He also said the combination of melee and shooting gives you a genuine feeling of being Bond, slick, capable, and always in motion. And even Jake did expand upon this. He said ammo is limited, so you're constantly moving, grabbing weapons off enemies, kicking guns up off the floor mid-sprint, throwing empty weapons at people's faces and charging them, which I absolutely love. Reminds me so much of Uncharted. His favorite sequence involved a high-tech museum exhibit where he started with no gun, dropped chandeliers on enemies, triggered exhibits to cause confusion, blew fire extinguishers to create a fog of war, and then slipped in to take someone out and grab their weapon before all-out chaos ensued.
We can see that. That's fire.
He replayed this section on a harder difficulty, by the way. Yes, there are difficulty settings, and said it genuinely surprised him how much depth and tension it had when you were pushed to use everything available simultaneously. But maybe some of us just want to play the game as a stealth game and not rely on hand-to-hand combat or guns. Is it possible to play this game stealthily? So there are some opinions about this. So I did mention to you guys that you can't drag or hide bodies. That might bother some of you guys, so I am going to mention it again. But Jake Paul,
that don't bother me.
Say this. He appreciated how the stealth failure system is handled. So getting spotted doesn't mean an instant mission failure or full reset. Enemies have to make a call to alert others, giving you a window to intervene. You could even get spotted by 2 guards simultaneously, deal with both, and the game will confirm the situation is contained, meaning the rest of the level stays unaware if they have not called it in. He called this a very strong fundamental choice and said too many stealth games get this part wrong, and yeah, he would be absolutely correct about that one. So here's my opinion on this. It seems like stealth is definitely a viable choice, but this stealth play is going to be more in line with what you would expect from Uncharted. And it seems like to me, they want some friction and tension and ultimately for things to kind of like blow up and for it to kind of like go wrong perhaps. Of course, it seems like you can get through a lot of the experience in a level, stealthing your way through it. But I think that a lot of you guys, after seeing how good this like hand-to-hand combat actually looks and the gunplay, I don't think you would mind for the situation to go out of control.
Ooh, shot him right there in his leg. Shot the gun off.
Through it. I mean,
some of those features that I like is like when you shoot the knee, they get down. You shoot the gun, they lose the gun. You shoot them in their hands, they go like this. Like there's a lot of attention to detail. Again, since 2020, and look, it took what 6 years, 5 6 years. I'm really excited. So one thing I was hoping for was to see the blood and feature. That's why for PC I wanted this game, because if they don't have blood and gore, whatever, I could just look for mods. And I know you guys probably like it's not that serious. I like stuff like that. What's the problem? Like I like that kind of immersion.
And that's very James Bond anyway. But we also need to talk about Bond's instinct and spycraft. So yes, the game has a mechanic called Bond's instinct, a kind of active ability that can lure enemies, help you bluff your way through suspicion, or sharpen your combat precision. Think of it as Bond being on his game versus not of the mission around you, and open up different routes. Now there's also gadgets. So Bond has access to Q branch gadgets as well, which is really cool. It is very much reminiscent of the movies, and this is something I love, how you're working direct.
One thing I do want to say is that what makes it so cool that they just drew inspiration from Watch Dogs as well as the gadgets. Then you have the stealth, and you have the fast pace, just the adventure, the exploration part of it, like an Uncharted game. And then you got Batman, because again, you would have like Lucius Fox, the inventor of like the gear and stuff like that, and Bruce just also being brains behind a lot of the stuff that goes on with his stuff. But it's cool to see that. So them drawing inspiration from like I think the right games, the right franchises, is probably going to make this game like act as a contender for Game of the Year. Seriously,
with the engineers on these gadgets and Q
super
himself.
cool.
So this is something that I really, really love.
Super cool.
Gadgets do recharge
Oh.
via biological and electrical materials scattered through levels. You're not just carrying unlimited charges, by the way. So we have the emetic dart gun that sends NPCs scrambling to the bathroom, a watch laser, smoke screens, knockout darts, and a hacking device for electronics. So yeah, back to the stealth play here, because there were some mentions about this, some negative things said about the stealth play that I definitely need to go over here for sure. So yes, there have definitely been some reservations about this. So for example, it was noted that the game sometimes handholds players more than Hitman does. Waypoints pointing you to eavesdrop locations. For example, Mr. Matty Plays attributed to IO going after a broader audience here. So he felt it undermined the intelligence of the player in certain moments, especially since that you'd likely find things on your own. Now, the information gathering phase gave Mr. Matty Plays mixed feelings too here. He found a clever solution to infiltrate a blocked off area at the gala, a multi-step process involving a broken camera and a bluff, but then learned another journalist at the same event just blinded the guards and walked through. Now, while he did acknowledge
that could be a problem.
A feature here, and a positive, by the way, he worried that it also might make more thoughtful approach feel unnecessary to many players if you can just go up and like blind the guards and get past them. So yeah, the license to kill system was also a note here, where Bond can't freely draw his gun until stealth breaks down. This, of course, made narrative sense to Matty, but he felt it doesn't always sit comfortably as a gameplay mechanic. You understand why IO got there, but it can feel restrictive. And there's also this really cool.
Yeah, I can understand why that would feel restrictive as well, man. Fuck.
Well, what is that? So beyond the main story, there's a mode called Tactical Simulation, or TACSIM, a replay mode set in the M16 facility that lets you go back through missions with extra modifiers for a more challenge-focused, replayability-oriented experience. If you've played Hitman or loved the exhalations and challenges there, this is clearly IO scratching that itch for you guys. And, you know, back into some of the more divisive opinions about 007 First Light here. So, yes, what did PC Gamer have to say? So, they basically, the gist of this is they said it isn't IO playing at their strengths. In other words, it's not them playing to what makes Hitman so very, very special. There's not as much gadgets and NPCs that you can ultimately manipulate, and it's like nowhere near the depth of tools Agent 47 has.
Really?
My opinion on this, it's because this is not a Hitman game. You know, they still want Hitman to be a prominent franchise in their library of
That is true.
They want to make sure that they can have Bond not feel like Hitman, and Hitman its own thing. And that makes sense to me, at least. But, you know, they did note that these levels aren't going to be as big and open as some of the more celebrated Hitman games. Let me know if that bothers you guys or not. But, you know, from the gameplay...
Hey, listen, you don't have to force open world if you don't have to force open world. You can have a linear experience, somewhat of a big map in each stage. I just don't want it to end up like what happened to Hitman later, where it was like episodic. And I want like a fluid. Like I'm playing through Absolution right now, and I just love the idea that there's some cutscenes and it just feels very immersive. I just wanted to be immersive. Uncharted, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it was an open world game. It was more of a linear experience in a vast world. So it was a huge world that gave you enough exploration. But I think once you got from point A to point B, you can kind of go back, but it wasn't meant for it to be that way. If I look, forgive me if I'm wrong on Uncharted 4, but I just felt like it was more of a linear story. I think God of War Ragnarok was more of an open world. Batman obviously is more of an open world. Again, I could be wrong. I just forgot. But I know that you don't have to force open world. Look at what happened with the Mafia franchise. They forced open world in that game and didn't have a lot of fun elements in that world of an open world game. Old Country did the same thing. It's a linear story, but then it's open world, so to speak, and there's barely any functionality of an open world life. Like it's just,
We have seen so far from the preview events, from the B-roll and everything like that. Yeah, the game looks really, really impressive. What is interesting, this is something important to note here, is that a lot of the previews and early access impressions, they didn't get to record their own gameplay. And that might be a red flag for some of you.
that is a red flag, I will admit.
Digital Foundry did get to go in depth with the game. So there is that. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And we're going to talk about all the.
That is concerning. That is concerning, I will admit.
Yeah, from characters to the actual environments themselves. Yeah, IO Interactive has done an amazing job upgrading their engine, and they've done a lot here. So yeah, the performance capture was also noted as well for the actual cinematic moments. They did an amazing job there, and the music and the sound effects were also noted as being top tier here. But again, let's talk about the Digital Foundry stuff. So this is what they had to say. They did like an entire hour-long examination. It was super impressive. I'll try throwing that link in the description below. But the 60 frames per second target has been in place since the very beginning of this project, especially for consoles, which started full production roughly 6 years ago with a small team that grew over time. For the PS5 Pro, it runs what is essentially the equivalent of the quality mode settings found on the base PS5, but at 60 frames per second.
So it doesn't give
Players on PS5 Pro get the higher resolution and visual quality.
Okay.
That base PS5 users can.
Hey, listen. I got the PS5 Pro. I don't agree with this thing being $900 now. Definitely should have gotten, a lot of y'all should have gotten it when it was like still $650 or something like that or whatever. But I'm hearing GTA 6 is also going to be running at 60 on this, and I think 30 on the PS5. That's actually kind of crazy. Kind of crazy, man. Kind of crazy. I don't know. All this AI technology they said that's in these consoles. Mark Cerny, forgive me if I said his name wrong, claimed that there was some sort of like AI technology that can help enhance the pixels and make it run at the high resolutions and frame rates. And then all of a sudden you hear that these devs aren't even capable of doing that. And so that's a problem for me.
Which is then upscaled to 4K. So
wow.
Getting the best of both worlds, the
Okay.
fidelity of quality mode and the smooth frame rate of performance mode simultaneously without having to choose between them.
Wow.
I didn't even ask you guys, what platform are you guys going to be playing?
Big Steam platform.
Sound off in the comments down below. I'm kind of curious to see how it's going to be running on PC. But continuing on with the PS5 discussion, we'll get into the Xbox stuff and then the PC stuff here in just a moment. The base PS5 players have two options here for what they want to do with the graphics. They have performance mode, which targets 60 frames per second with an internal render resolution of 1080p, upscaled from there. And then you have the quality mode, targets 30 frames per second at the same 1440p internal resolution as the PS5 Pro with upscaling to 4K. This is where base PS5 players access the higher visual settings, but at the cost of the frame rate.
Damn.
If you mind that or not. Now, Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series X is treated as equivalent to the base PS5. It also offers both a performance mode, 60 frames per second.
Wow.
Which is at 30 frames per second, and the same resolution targets mirrored across both options. Now, they are actually doing some interesting things on PC that I think a lot of you guys will be kind of like happy about here. So check it out. So IO avoids large numbers of shader permutations by design. They decided to avoid static branching in shaders since permutations scale exponentially with each branch added. So pre-caching happens on first boot. taking a couple of minutes on a mid-range PC and less on higher-end machines. The gather process for shaders is automated rather than manual, is meaningfully better than many games that end up with incomplete manual gather passes. So this is actually
I hate that too. Almost every game nowadays has that. Installing shaders, bitch.
Target is a GTX 1660 on NVIDIA side and
Oh, wow.
RDNA 1 on AMD side. Now, the team built every new system with scalability down to that target as a hard requirement. If a feature couldn't scale to minimum spec, it wasn't shipped. The Switch 2 version, arriving later this summer, is also expected to run all the same features without cuts or feature rebuilds using the same unified tech base.
Okay.
But let me tell you what, across all of these platforms, they have done some really crazy work with their actual engine here. So we have got to get into what they have done, for example, with the AI crowds. We're going to talk about the animation system. They've really overhauled it here. So the crowd system traces all the way back to Hitman Absolution. Over
Yeah.
the trilogy, it evolved from large, dense, moving crowds towards smaller, more deliberate groups with more sophisticated individual behavior. Now, First Light continues that direction and adds several improvements. Crowd characters can now hold props like glasses. Facial animation has been significantly upgraded.
That's nice.
Okay, so characters believably react to their surroundings, and the visual quality gap between crowd characters and named NPCs has been substantially narrowed.
That's
Now, the animation
nice.
system was also rebuilt from scratch. Hitman used a third-party middleware solution that is no longer supported and created workflow friction between the middleware and the engine. Now, the new system is fully internal and integrated directly into the engine, enabling better tooling and faster iteration for the animation team. The jump in animation complexity here is significant. Walking through an open space in Hitman might use around 10 animations. Bond walking around the gala in First Light uses around 100 just for walking. The system uses motion matching for locomotion, agility, and general navigation as the base layer, with procedural modifications layered on top for things that look at behavior, foot placement on uneven surfaces, and partial ragdoll simulation for explosion and death. So the close combat system specifically relies on motion warping technology, they're calling it, when enemies are thrown into walls or objects. The animations are essentially mini cinematics that get adjusted dynamically to fit wherever in the levels the interaction actually happens, using IK systems to connect characters and
That's
motion
nice.
warping to close the distance to precise precision. Yeah, it all sounds really, really impressive.
It does.
Like they put a lot of work and passion into this new 007 game. There's no doubt about it. It seems like to me they don't want to get this wrong at all whatsoever. So yeah, to see this type of love and attention to detail put into a 007 game, man, maybe this will be the first of many 007 games coming from IO Interactive if we see that this is well received. And there were some opinions also about our new James Bond character as well. Those are kind of varied and diverse. And I think
I wonder how people feel.
down to actually letting the credits roll on this one. Some,
Oh, I like that little fight. He missed that punch. He missed that kick.
He acts like Bond. I am sold on this. And then others are like, he's way too energetic. He's more Nathan Drake than anything else. So
I mean, he seemed like a younger guy. You know, he seemed like more of like a guy in his 30s. Who knows? I mean, I don't know the full story of this particular character, but he could be a more younger, wittier guy until he becomes a more wiser, more Bond, James Bond. Like, I don't know,
there are definitely those Uncharted vibes in there, and some felt that he needs to be more cynical. However, they did know that maybe perhaps through time and through experience, that type of person.
I just said that, basically, his age.
In Bond, which would make a lot of sense. But yeah, this is a different Bond. It's that simple. It's not Daniel Craig. It's not any other Bond. It's a uniquely unique Bond that IO
Daniel Craig's a W-Mans
has crafted here. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of 007 First Light. I know I am counting down the days until this releases. I think it looks legit, yeah, I keep mentioning it. I'm a huge fan of Uncharted, and to see that they have that type of DNA in this game mixed with Hitman, hell yes, I'm definitely there for this. But we'll see how it pans out in the long term. Previewers did know, and those early impressions did say, can they keep this up? We played a small slice. It was like 3 hours or so. Can they really keep that up throughout the entire 20-hour experience? Yeah, We'll see. But thanks, guys, for watching. Stay tuned here for more, and I will see you all next time. Take care.
Man, that looked good. This looks promising. I feel like some people's gonna expect some people go into things expecting like the most extraordinary game they've ever played in their life. And then some people go in there not expecting so much, and it becomes the best game they ever played in their life. Like when I played Hogwarts Legacy, I fell in love with it. Like that game got to be played every winter. I feel like that game was phenomenal. But then there's a lot of flaws. Like they didn't spend too much time with the Hufflepuff story. They didn't spend too much time with the house stories that much. They didn't have too much of a story where it's rooted in like so many different cutscenes, and just it wasn't more of a cinematic experience, but it was still nonetheless a very fun experience. So in this case here, I'm excited. I can't wait. And I believe I might have access on the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see about that. Hopefully I do. But I'm excited nonetheless, though. But I want to let you guys know I appreciate each and every one of y'all. I love y'all so much. And I cannot wait to share some footage with you guys when I get a hand on the game or hold of the game. All right, man. I love you guys. I'm out of here. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I'm out. Peace.